All right, so this machine is straight out of the box. Now, as you can see, they threaded kind of a multicolored thread in order to assist with kind of color coordinating where things go, as well as, I guess, them testing the thread out, which piece of fabric is right here. So most definitely read the tiny piece of paper that they have put underneath the foot with important information on it. And we are going to go ahead and get started. All right, so in order to get the door open, at least the door or the encasing, you slide to the right all the way and you open, and that exposes a lot of instructions, mainly color coded. As you can see, the reason for the color coded thread, as well as kind of the guide to help you thread the machine, but we're still going to do it step by step here. All right, so the thread is of course being put here in the 4 areas. This is where we start when it comes to threading the machine. Of course, per the instructions, we start with number 3. Now, note that an easy way to rethread your machine is to use the end of this area where the machine or the thread is already into the machine itself, and you're going to have it tied to the beginning of each of these spools. So basically, you tie each spool to its, respective thread here, and you're going to lower your tension down to 0. And where the thread ends up, of course, where your presser foot area is, because there's no tension, you can easily pull here slowly, of course, and so as not to damage the machine until the new thread is basically all the way through the machine, which actually having to physically take each one and thread it through. All right, so this part of the recording is going to get a little more mobile due to the fact that there is no camera person. It is a one-woman show today. So in order to pretty much see a little bit better, especially the internal components and the color coding I spoke of earlier, see blue, green, red, yellow, 4-thread, 3-thread, more so instructions for different threading types. It'll be a whole lot better as far as visuals, kind of doing things this way. So per the instructions on that very important piece of paper there, the presser foot needs to be up before we start threading. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to actually cut this thread or this fabric from here. This will be what I use to kind of test things out once everything's actually threaded through properly per that lovely color coding and instructions. But again, if you are familiar with sewing machines, then, or if you've read the actual instruction manual, you know that the presser foot is right there. So I'm going to come from behind and kind of lift that up, and you'll see the presser foot itself going up. Alrighty, so because some of these steps are kind of continuous or the same, I feel starting with this portion of the machine from the eyelet area to the latch here down to the tension discs can be done with all 4 spools at one time, and leaving a little leeway of the thread to hang here for each tension disc until I'm ready to kind of bring everything down to the presser foot area. Of course, down here with a little more specific and complicated steps will be a little bit easier for moi. Now, these nice little tweezers I'm using as a pointer because I don't want to use, my hands to kind of block everything, actually came with the machine. Same nice little bag with some necessities came with my Serger sewing machine over here that's hiding, so it won't be jealous. And these will definitely help out for the finer touches that come a little bit later. Now, so each thread is going to go through these eyelets, and it's going to go from the back. So starting with this, now it might be easier with my hand, but I'm going to try with my non-dominant hand with the tweezers. So let's give this a try. All righty, so all right. And even though I'm not starting with the, the kind of the order completely, I'm still starting with number 3. It was just the first thread I kind of saw that was ready. So, and onto this one. Oh, come on, I saw you. There you go. All righty. All right. Everybody is working so nicely. Okay. Pull each through a little bit. Nope, come on now. Need you to cooperate. There we go. Pull through a little more. Pull through a little more. Oh no, I can't see you necessarily. Yeah, good. Pull you through a little more. And definitely you, because you look like you're going to go right back down. All right, perfecto. All right, so good. Everybody is ready for the latch area. All right, so the thread's going to pretty much go around this latch here so that when the thread comes around, it's going to actually rest here in this sort of rounded area and then fall through on its way to the tension disc, okay? So, of course, easier in an example than explained, at least in for me. So let's get started with that first piece. I pulled so much of it so that I can get it all the way down to the bottom of the machine. I have to find the end of the thread. Okay, so where are you? There we go. All right, so pulling this around. So because you want it to rest right there, remember that little area, you already know that in order for it to do so, you can't wrap it around this way. You have to wrap it around here. So the best thing to do is kind of go or pin it against the machine. Oh, didn't have it flat enough. Pin it against the machine and then slide it under that area. And as you can see, the other portion of the thread, let me pull you a little bit more, that way you can actually sit in here. Okay, the other portion of the thread will sit right here in this area. See? There we go. But you'll see, so you can sit, it sits there on its way to the tension disc. So all of the other 3 are to be done the same way. So another thing to note, that just because you kind of slide the thread behind the latch does not mean it's necessarily going to stay. As you can see, or you saw earlier, it kind of slid a little bit. So the best thing to do is to kind of, well, where are my tweezers? Using one finger, I'm going to do, and then kind of pulling it. My hands work a whole lot better first, even though. All right, so you kind of need to snap it in there so it's taut. And this little thing will kind of make sure it doesn't slide back and forth. As you can see, it's kind of, it'll take a little bit of, leeway to pull it out. So make sure you snap it in there. Same thing I did with the other one. And on to number 3 and 4. All right, so we are at the tension disc part of the setup. Remember I said we're doing all 3 steps of the general consistent steps. So we got everything through the eyelet, we've moved through the latch, now we're at the tension disc area. So we're going to kind of slide everything there. It's kind of pretty much into position anyway, because again, the way we put everything in the latch, it was already kind of slid into that this little notch or the space area, ready to be kind of put into the tension disc area. So I need both hands. We're gonna have to like opt out for the tweezers, so that you're able to see, kind of holding with my right hand the area up there. I'm going to slide, you can kind of hear it squeeze in there, slide the thread into the tension disc, and you can kind of pull at it so you already know that it's in there. So same thing with everything, not in there, barely in. All right, push down as well and hold with the other hand. So see, see, in your tension disc. And on to the next one, slide down, squeezed in there, good, you hear that, and you feel the tension. So, on to step number, there we go, perfect. And I'm actually going to keep it at this preset tension, you know, unless I get, you know, the instructions and kind of tell me otherwise, but especially since I want to kind of get that beautiful stitch that was in that sample fabric that I'm going to test with later. All right, so through the tension disc, now it's time for the actual third spool or third tension disc area, because that's down here in the color-coded area, more specifically complicated steps I would call it, or it seems to be looked that way. That's where we're going to start next. All right, so we're starting with the red, or number 3 spool as I call it, but I think red, or keeping it color coded because the machine is kind of set up that way, will be a little bit easier. So for the red step, so we have that thread, you can kind of see it in its little slot already, fresh from the tension disc area. So as you can see, the next step is under here. You have these latches that both the red will go here, and you know, the next step over there. So let's focus on the red now. We're going to put that thread, come on Twizzler, because I will use my hand, behind that latch there. So that's the next step, going down. And remember, we are following for the most part that color code. So after that, we're actually going to go down here. So although, you know, we're going to go down here and, oh, come on thread, put it behind here. So nice straight line from tension disc, step under there, and then here. And then next we're going to go right over here, and if you look closely, you can see that the thread needs to kind of be held in that loop from the bottom up. Oh, yeah, I think it's making me want to use my hand. I look pressing up against things, that way it'll, there we go, pressing up against the machine kind of helps the thread slide in there a little bit better. Okay, so you're in there now. Next logical as well as actual step would be to kind of go up here. Same thing, kind of look from the side, you can kind of see the guide is there. Press the thread up against there so it can easily kind of slide in there. It was kind of, I wouldn't say difficult, but it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be to kind of get the other thread out of this particular step for some reason. So I'm trying to see if I can do it without, oh, it went in there, okay. Good, so we are there. Perfect. All right, so now we are going to the next step, which although it is not color coded, is actually right over there. This thread's gonna go in that little hole there. So I'll take some maneuvering really quick. Come on, buddy. Gotta make sure we're going from underneath. So come on. And sometimes with thread, you know, if it's a little fuzzy, sometimes it doesn't go in very easily. All right, so you can kind of pull that all the way to the back. Come hither. All right. Not too far, but and I'm just because as you know, I did pull a lot of thread down so that I have enough. I don't want to actually have too much either. So let's make this so it's nice and snug. Perfect. Now we can start with the yellow up here. So again, from the tension disc down. Now remember we talked about it earlier. That was for the red area. This is going to be for the yellow. So we're going to go around. Good, waiting for you to focus for me. Around that area. Perfecto. Now, zits follows the yellow. So we are on down here. Okay. Again, these little hooks, I'm glad they're snug in a sense, but again, sometimes it makes it a little difficult to get thread around. So come on. There we go. Perfect. All right, so you are in here now. Come on, up against. There we go. Up against, pull that through. Come on, friend. Pull. Up against. And right now I'm going to pull both. I want to be pretty. Perfect. All right. Had to get there and there a different kind of way. All right. Of course, if you're not holding the camera, it's so much easier. All right. So we're threading you through the next yellow latch. Come on, friend. All right. So now we're through most of those. All right, so in order for me to actually show you, we'd have to be inside the machine, honestly. As far as the last portion of the yellow step, so you see we've kind of guided it through all of these yellow areas. But of course, you know, the last step is usually not necessarily color-coded, much like the red step. So as you can see, this nifty yellow color-coded diagram is actually for that last step of the yellow brick road, okay? So it's not visible, like this portion of that little hook here, like that part where the little notch is, like right there, that is not necessarily visible with, you know, the way the machine is. So of course you can see like a little notch, so you know that this is kind of where it goes. I'm going to kind of go through the steps, but just know that the notch is over here, as close as I can get to the machine. You're not necessarily able to see that little notch over there, but you can kind of feel it and see it, of course, on your machine, but you know that the thread kind of needs to sit in that before you bring it across and thread it through that hole, okay? All right, so let's start with threading, kind of doing that up and over motion, you know, so that's somebody's weird looking finger here. So the thread will go, you know, you would kind of push down, but again, you know, I'm working with one hand now, so kind of having an up and over situation first when it comes to that hook. So I'm going to do a little trick here, and that trick is kind of pushing against, you know, it's easier for me to kind of push against the machine with certain things or certain steps. So pushing against here, pushing against, come on. And that gives me my up and over, right? So now we are up and over. So I'm pull as much as I can. Come on, bud. Come on through. Okay. Or be mean to me, fine. Again, the pushing method works well because we got it right back over the machine. Haha. So now it's finding that little notch area so that when you pull this over, the thread is kind of still sitting over there in a notch. So I'm going to use kind of that push pressure method and find that notch by pushing the tweezers in that particular area. And then sometimes kind of like pulling this thread down a little bit while sliding it over, and then kind of doing like a tug and push over will kind of slide everything. Or you can also be really nice to kind of grab both threads if you can with the tweezers. Almost had it. Grabbing both threads with the tweezers. And then kind of doing a slide and pull. Yeah, so like a slide and pull motion. That way you can kind of get it in the notch. But now, anyway, so it's in the notch. And now it's time to thread through the eyelet. So taking the thread and kind of going through here, through the eyelet. All right, on the first try, wonderful. Taking the tweezers, of course, and making sure you don't lose that little tiny piece of thread. Going towards the back of the machine, of course, because that is where it's going to sit, same as the other thread coming from behind the machine. Actually, it's easier for you to see back there. All right, so remember that first step you take is going to be right after the tension disc, and the first step you take after the tension disc is usually right next to it. So same with these down here, you know, the next step is going to be right up against the machine near the tension disc. So that will be this hook here. So coming from the side, you can kind of see, you just kind of gently place it underneath there. Just get some clarity here. All right, gonna hang up the tweezers for a minute. All right, so place it under here. Then we're actually going to go under the larger hook here, as you can see from the side. Oh, wait a minute, tweezers might have been better for this one. Okay. All right, so that next step is completed. Now we're going to go in the up and over. So that's going to be the green color-coded indicated step here. So let me just move this thread out of the way. Remember, I don't want them to get tangled up. And because they are the same color, a route which I chose to take, don't want them to get confused either. All right, so over this notch for this green step. There we go, nice and taut over there. And then we're gonna go straight down. Okay, so you're gonna loop it around this hook here. It's easy for you to just kind of see it on the top. So the swirl there, A and B, you're gonna put everything, we'll put the, I call it green, around 3. So I'm kind of pushing it in there because I want it to kind of sit there a little more securely. All right, so it's in there. So that last step for the green is definitely going to be the needle. And since the needle under A, of course, as you guess, that is exactly where that thread for step number green goes. So we're gonna go ahead and thread that needle through there. And thread is definitely, or needle and thread are definitely tweezer steps. So And you can kind of pull everything to the side once you do that. So much thread. So much thread I pulled through here. All right. So blue has the least amount of steps. Blue is going to be a little bit easier than olive 4, which is great because we started out difficult only because we knew, very little, at least I did, about this machine. So now we're on to the end of our threading journey, ready for a test on that sample fabric, which I'm excited for, to see if I kind of did this very well, since I did unthread the machine with the colorful thread. So we are actually going to go from that tension disc for the blue down under this hook that's directly below, right alongside the green one. But now the blue has its own other latch, you can see. So kind of placing it in here. Wonderful. And that last step is, of course, going to be that B hook, or that B little spiral there. So remember, we kind of placed it under there and around, and around, so that it can kind of stay there. Perfecto. And then on to threading that needle through. Beautiful. All right, so machine is threaded. I'm going to put the presser foot down. Remember that notch, that latch from earlier? You can't really see it because the presser foot is now up. Where'd you go? 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 Ooh. All right. So let's test this baby out. And I'm going to close my little door. Oh, wow. Okay. Watch your fingers there, ladies and gents. All right. So a moment of truth. The machine has been turned on. Usually indicated from that light there. Our presser foot is now down. So we're ready, because you can see the latch now. So now we're ready. Sample fabric is kind of set up a little to the right so that I can kind of have a visual of this knife method, or this cutting of the excess fabric, and kind of see how that works. And I don't necessarily have another piece of fabric I'm willing to, slice up a little bit. So the sample fabric works out really well, and looking for those stitching to come out in that interlocked beautiful way that the sample came out. So moment of truth, ready, set, go. Pedal is on my left because my right foot's a little too heavy. Oh my God. Oh my God. See, you remember that? Anyway, yes, that is beautiful. Remember, I was like, maybe even more beautiful than the last one. Yeah, maybe on the end here, got a little too excited. Fabric is, let me see. Are the threads a little too loose? No, it's beautiful right here. Kind of figuring out what to do at the beginning and end is more so what I want to practice on, but the stitching itself is immaculate. Okay, I love this. And then of course the excess cut down here, kind of getting rid of that. But yeah, all in all, I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this machine and the stitching method, being as kind of redoing the brand a bit, and kind of focusing on partial manufacturing, and then also factoring in homemade designs. I just feel like it's a really good skill for someone who's been interested in fashion design for as long as me, but doesn't want to go to school, so I'm more of a, I like my own hair, do my own nails, press-ons came off, but the SNS will be done tomorrow. So I really love, kind of the do-it-yourself method for a lot of things. So yeah, this is and it's not, all loose and willy-nilly, as you can see. It's not coming apart and all that kind of stuff. So I love it. I'm so excited to use this machine, and tune in, of course, for the exciting pieces that I plan to make with this. Thanks for watching.